The B&D Roll-A-Door is one of the great Australian suburban icons, a product that helped change our post-war residential landscape. Practical, reliable and inexpensive, millions of roller-doors have been sold around Australia and the world. 50 years later, the roller-door remains hugely popular and has made B&D one of our most recognised brands. Today, the iconic B&D Roll-A-Door is part of the permanent collection here at the National Museum of Australia in Canberra. This is the story of how the humble roller-door came to earn its place in this collection and in our nation's affection. B&D was founded in Sydney by two 20-year-olds, Arthur Byrne and Paul Davidson, who met while working at the Colonial Sugar Refinery. Both men had a strong desire to strike out on their own, and so, in 1946, they started a steel fabricating business in a relative's garage.
You get that urge to go out and do your own thing, which we did with a very small amount of money, and in fact started in my brother's backyard at Punchbowl. Well, we went into the steel fabricating business in all metals, mainly because we only needed a welder and a grinder and an oxy set. Very little investment.
The fledgling company built its own factory and began undertaking engineering jobs throughout Australia. But it was the arrival of a young accountant named Ray Willoughby which set B&D on the road to success.
A lot of talent. Arthur Byrne and his partner Paul Davidson were a couple of tradesmen who'd started out with £70 each and bought a few welding sets and started their business. I think they had 4 employees at that stage, but they were a fantastic team, and Arthur was driving that business along, and it was very obvious to me it was going to become a lot more than a small fabricating company.
Ray's timely arrival was the beginning of a successful partnership that would last 25 years. But it was another arrival, that of Sydney inventor Ben Saul, which would change the direction of B&D forever.
A man named Ben Saul, I think he was from Egypt, had migrated to Australia, and he'd seen in Egypt the roller-door type of door with a curtain pressed out, as opposed to the lot of interlocking slats of the heavy roller shutters of the time. And he thought it'd be a product, and between he and Arthur and Paul, who were still full-time, I wasn't, I was outside director, they figured for garages it'd be very suitable.
Believing that the idea had merit, B&D provided him with workspace and the materials to start.
We made that arrangement of Ben developing the door, and we'd sort of supplied the workshop, the materials and the money. And Ben went ahead, and a rough sort of guy, you know, rough in his dress, rough every way. Nevertheless, he did it, and that's when we put it on the market.
However, attempts to sell the prototype door failed, and as a result, B&D and Saul lost interest. Parts and materials were abandoned in the corner of the workshop. Ben Saul resigned from the business, and Arthur and Ray had to decide what to do with the materials left behind.
And it was hot in my office on a January night, and we adjourned to Hyde Park to finish our board meeting. And
his office was about 5 foot square.
And it wasn't high on the agenda. We had many more important things than this heap of scrap steel that we're going to build, available for building about 70 doors. And the choice was to either sell it for scrap or make it up into the 70 doors and hope to flog them. And we can't remember, Arthur and I honestly can't remember till today who voted into turning it into scrap. It was a 2-to-1 decision to turn it into doors, but the decision was to turn it into doors, and it's an important thing in my mind was for many years in business, how close you can be to missing an opportunity, because, as I say, it was like that whether we went ahead with it.
Arthur Byrne joined forces with B&D boilermaker Gordon Lambert to refine the roller door.
It was only by chance on that night that we decided to let me join up with Gordon Lambert and develop the door and give it a go at selling the 70.
The result was the invention of the first all-steel mass-produced garage door that rolled and unrolled without cracking. It was truly a breakthrough.
Well, there's not much in the design of a roller door, as you've already seen, I think, and Ben would have copied those ones that were quite throughout Europe. You could have driven anywhere in France or anywhere and find the one with the smaller corrugation, but the principle being the same, not the slide-in slats. You understand those, I guess. And so, but there was a lot of tidying up necessary, and we slowly did that initially after the Hyde Park meeting. We made it a bit better, or well, perhaps a lot better, but then we continued, and I suppose they're still continuing to this day.
B&D launched the Roll-A-Door in 1956 at the Sydney Home Show, where it was an unexpected success.
After 2 or 3 weeks of, 7 the first week and 10 the second, it was looking good. It was looking good. We'd always be a bit concerned, but we realised we'd made the right decision rather than sell it for scrap.
Initially, B&D planned only to sell 70 doors, those made from materials left behind by Ben Saul. However, demand for the Roll-A-Door at the show was so great that all the doors were sold within 2 months.
I didn't think anything was going to happen, and a funny little incident. I was on that one particular night, and a drunk came up, and he's looking at it and he's pushing it with his hand, and he said, "What do you think would happen if I drove my car into it?" I said, "The bloody thing would fall to pieces." He said, "Oh," and wandered away.
In 1957, founder Paul Davidson left the company, opening the door to Ray Willoughby. Already an integral part of B&D's success, Ray was appointed Joint Managing Director.
We realised it was a profitable little business, and certainly at least the thing Arthur wanted in the way of another product other than going ahead with just contracting all the time.
Yeah, well, we were getting a lot of feedback. A doctor out at Bellevue Hill bought one or two, I can't remember, rang me up and abused the hell out of me. He reckoned the thing didn't work properly. I said, "Well, I can't imagine that. I'll come over and see you." So I went over, and there'd be little bits like that were rough or clumsy, if you like, and so we'd make that change there and then.
B&D created its own research and development department, working to continually improve construction and design of the Roll-A-Door. Continual development of the Roll-A-Door's design from 1956 onwards resulted in a safe, easy-to-open, secure garage door that wouldn't slam shut. To highlight the door's ease of operation, B&D introduced the popular advertising slogan, "A child can open it," which became a feature of Roll-A-Door's advertising throughout the 1960s.
We used to put a cast iron block down the edge of each side of the door and run it up and down on there, and that worked okay, but people would put grease on it, and then they get grease all over their suit or the housewife's dress, and so that was a real problem to us.
In 1956, television was introduced in Australia, and B&D was one of its first advertisers.
I remember driving to B&D one day and I thought, we've got to find out whether television is any good for us or not.